Dean. So round of applause for Dean.
So in true entrepreneurial spirit here, I wrote the majority of my talk last night at 2:30 in the morning after working all night. So I'm not going to be as over here as I'd like to be. I'm going to be a lot more over here reading what I actually wrote. So yeah, good morning, SociaLIGHT. How are you guys? Good. Everybody excited? Everybody liking the talks this morning? I'm super excited to be here. My name's Dayton. I'm here this morning to tell you some stories about the shitty side of entrepreneurship and the lovely beast that is entrepreneurship. Hopefully shed some light on the good, the bad, and give some of you in the audience who might be starting out a bit of a real take on what it takes. So real quick before I get started, show of hands, how many of you in the audience want to be an entrepreneur? Awesome. And keep your hands up or raise them up if you're already doing it. Holy, wow, even more. Awesome. Good for you guys. So who am I? And why am I up here talking about this? Teresa introed me and talked a little bit about my past. I am an entrepreneur and I've been one for nearly 15 years now, but I wasn't always. My career started in systems, in network engineering, one of those soon-to-be fabled ops guys that Amazon's putting out of business. But in every company that I started at, I wasn't an entrepreneur, but I was always, or often, employee number one. When you're employee number one, you see a side of the company that you don't often see when you start at 15, 30, 50, or 100 people. But you also get shelter from the things that you never realized you have to deal with. Raising money, hiring, accounting, firing, contracts, shareholders agreements. By the way, get a shareholders agreement, seriously, if you don't have one. The list goes on though. When you hear about entrepreneurship, you don't always hear about the shitty parts. The sleepless nights, the anxiety, the fear of failure. There are days when I'm on the absolute top of the world. And on the other hand, there are days where I actually consider if I can even do it anymore. Those shitty days usually start to feel even worse because inevitably I wonder, is it just me that can't seem to figure it out? TechCrunch reports another $10 million seed round for an app that draws mustaches on photos of your cat. Another unicorn valuation in the billions is making the rounds. And we torture ourselves. Why haven't we exploded? Why is it so hard? These parts are the ones that people don't talk about. You see, being an entrepreneur is cool now. Being a geek is cool now. Growing up, I lived in a world where geeks were not cool. If you played on a computer or with electronics, you were a loser. Kids like me heard a lot of computers are just for video games, and video games rot your brain. And it's funny how quickly you can relate entrepreneurial spirit to that tiny little feeling in your stomach when someone tells you that you're wasting your time on one of your passions. And it'll never amount to anything. I believe it's often referred to as spite. We now live in a world where telling your boss to fuck off, quitting your job, and starting your own business is trendy. Even further, it's trendy to raise a buttload of money, grow bigger and faster than reasonably sane, sell it for billions, and change the world. Right? We hear this all the time. So with this little advancement right here, the whole game changed. And I'm sure you guys have all heard about it. It's accessible to everybody. Anyone with enough skill and time can launch the next killer app. The kind of opportunity that we have today is crazy, and it's real. And because we're just getting started in this new world, we're seeing so many success stories over and over and over. So many people see this and think, I can do that, I have ideas. All I need to do is find someone to code the app for me and we'll be rich. If we could just get 1% of the market, we'd be rich. How many times have you heard that? On one hand, that's amazing. The opportunity we have today is greater than it's ever been, and a few of you will do some absolutely amazing things, I'm sure. On the other hand, I can tell you that many of you in this room today will take the plunge, and you won't make it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to discourage you. It's just a fact. Unfortunately, you don't become an entrepreneur just because you say you want to be an entrepreneur. It takes the right kind of person, and if me or anybody standing up here or talking to you tells you that you shouldn't do it because you're going to fail, if that makes you quit, I or anybody probably just did you a big favor, saved you a lot of pain. Teresa talked about Gary Vaynerchuk. If you guys haven't looked him up online, absolutely do it. One of my favorite quotes from Gary V goes, "You have to be prepared to take a punch in the face every fucking day and get up tomorrow and do it again." And it's true. Most people will get their first punch or their second punch and they'll go, "Oh, maybe I should go get a job," right? Some people have that happen after 1,000 punches or some other number. Some people will give in, some people will check themselves like I did and figure out a little bit more about who you really are. It changes from then on in. And it's not every great, it's not every great idea is actually a great idea. There's a good chance your idea actually sucks. And nobody's being real enough with you to tell you that. There's a good chance that even if your idea is great, the timing's wrong. Maybe you simply don't have the commitment and the patience it takes to succeed. Maybe the market crashed, maybe somebody else beat you to the punch. There are literally thousands of totally legit reasons that can prevent you from winning. I want to share some tips that might help you. First thing first, it starts and stops with you. You have to be the most motivated, the best at your craft. You have to be relentless. You have to be fearless. You have to be prepared to fight for it every goddamn day, and I mean every day. When you get into it, you have to commit, you have to go all in. But know this, every entrepreneur has good and bad days. It's the truest thing about it. It's a constant cycle. Once you accept and embrace that, things get a lot easier. Today I'm the CEO at Voxter, but I actually started as the CTO with 2 other co-founders. I thought it would be great. You know, someone else could worry about the business stuff. And I could just focus on the tech and come to work in my hoodie every day. It was the perfect scenario, and then we realized we had different goals for what we wanted to accomplish in the long run. And we went our separate ways. When they left the company, I opted to temporarily take the title of CEO, to save face to our customers. That was almost 10 years ago this June. Since then, I've learned there's no such thing as temporary. And that applies to the whole picture. I shied away from things I didn't know because I didn't think I had what it took. I've almost given up a couple times, and it took me a few years to figure out what being an entrepreneur and a CEO really meant. And at that, I've only really hit a real stride in the last 3. My next tip, stop beating yourself up over strategy. The long game is okay. I want you to stop and listen to that for a second. The long game is okay. There are companies out there that show up and within a year or 2 or 3, skyrocket to multi-million or even multi-billion-dollar valuations. And that's a strategy. It's not good or bad, but it's a strategy. Maybe it's for you, maybe it isn't. But there's been this trend lately where if that's not what you're doing, then you suck and you may as well not even bother. I think that's bullshit. Building a company to sell it for huge profit in the shortest time possible is great, but that's not building a business. It's a home renovation and a real estate flip. That's not to say it's not hard or rewarding or any of that, but again, it's a strategy. Letting go of the idea that you need to compare yourself to Uber or Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook is so goddamn freeing. You gotta be honest and realistic with yourself about what you want to accomplish. If you aren't laser focused on your strategy, you'll spend a lot of your time feeling like you just don't measure up. But really, how can you measure anything if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish? And finally, self-awareness. It's hard enough to finally realize what it's going to take, and another thing to have the discipline to make it happen. Entrepreneurship is not part-time, and it's not for everyone. I'd go as far as to say that a lot of the time, entrepreneurship sucks. Despite what the media would have you believe, being an entrepreneur is not glamorous. For instance, nobody tells you that you'll probably lose a lot of your friends because your schedule's so busy. won't get why you're working so much, why you can't just shut your phone off. You're on vacation. It's tough. You're always staring up a hill at a problem, at a buggy product, at a nearly empty bank account. It's 24/7, 365. There's no working when you want because now you're your own boss. You're accountable to your customers, to your team, to your shareholders. You gotta be prepared to wake up every single day and take that punch to the face. Every single day. And then you gotta get comfortable knowing that that's never gonna end. If you're waiting for it to fall into place, or if you're waiting for things to happen, I have some bad news. You can't wait. You have to act. Now, how about a couple pointers that I've learned over the years on how to make it a little bit more tolerable? Patience and persistence. Patience is such a big deal. It's incredibly uncommon for things to just happen overnight. It's not always going to go your way, and you got to be able to weather that storm. When you want to give up, you got to find something that drives you, something to fire up that persistence inside of you and get back on your feet, ready to swing back. For me, it was perspective and gratitude. I learned it on a phone call one day where things were just not going my way, and I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I spent a lot of time depressed and moping about it. And in the end, an unsuspecting phone call to a friend that actually works for us now, where I suggested that maybe I won't do this anymore, and his response was just so matter of fact and clear and genuine, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, "Well, that's stupid." Like I was even stupid, like I was stupid for even considering that was an option, because he could see it in a way that I couldn't. I realized he was right. At that moment, I decided I wasn't going to back down just because things got tough. Patience, persistence, patience, persistence. So leave here today and go back to whatever idea you're currently working on, first thing Monday morning, and when it challenges you and it asks you if today is the day you're going to give up, you stare it in its grumpy, bitchy Monday face and say, "Fuck that, I can do anything."
Awesome. Give it a round of applause for Dayton.